What's up, good people? We are back for another episode of the South Star Classroom, and we got a question for y'all today. Where are the teachers, man? Where are America's teachers, and what can we do to make sure these kids is getting what they need? And we want to hear your thoughts on it on the other side. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the South Star Classroom. I missed you all last week, but looked like it was a lively conversation. I'm Charles. That's David. That's Jubilee. Our other friend will be here soon, and I just want to prep y'all for when he comes. He has beautiful lighting, and his hair is extra black today. It's like he is like, y'all remember Johnny Bravo? Have you ever watched the cartoon Johnny Bravo? I'm very envious of our model friend, but Omar will be back with us soon. But we have a very interesting topic today, and I'm going to hand it to the person that brought that topic forward. And it seems to be pretty personal to her. So what are we talking about today, Jube, and why are we talking about it?
We are talking about this national teacher shortage, and it's
and
not
I didn't do check-ins at all, so I'm sorry, but you are a check-in queen, so I will let you handle. I'm giving you the reins.
All right, so we'll go back to teacher shortage because you got to know how the people are doing. We got to know how you're doing. I'll go first. I'm doing okay. I had a kind of day. I was in my head about a lot of things that are going on now. It's time to go back to school and this contract and applying for this and that. So I'm in my head about a lot. However, I had a great moment of euphoria watching my sons and their friends have some black boy joy in the pool, swimming and playing football. So that definitely lightened my mood. And so here we are, South Star Classroom. How are you, Dave?
Thank you. Good. We're back in school too. We've been back for, I think this is our second week. Things are going well, pretty smooth so far. We had a hurricane or a tropical depression storm come through. Shout out Hillary. And it turned out to be not really that big of a deal, but still, you're always better being over prepared for these things than you are being underprepared. So I've got a bunch of extra AA batteries. I got flashlights for everybody. I got candles. I got everything. So, we definitely have supplies. Other than that, looking forward to jumping into this topic today, which is, I think, near and dear to a lot of our hearts, especially if, you got kids in school. So yeah, that's what's up.
That's what's up.
Awesomeness. Hey, Omar, what's good? Check in.
Hey, can y'all hear me?
Sure can.
Yes, you're frozen, okay, but we can hear you. It's a great picture of you, though, by the way.
Yeah, look at that. He's really chiseled, man. He's
right here on the ground.
Wow. Great. Wow. That is a solid picture. Usually never that good. Right. What's up, everybody? Really happy to be here. So if you can hear me while I'm dead frozen, I know Castillo's like, Jesus, dude. I don't know what's going on with this computer. I'm getting a new one. What happened cool this week in light of the Blue Beetle, which we should absolutely do an episode on. In fact, I should write a note about that. If y'all don't know, the Blue Beetle is a movie that just came out based on a comic book character who is of Latino origin. It might be DC's truly first Latino superhero, came out in the 60s, which is near and dear to my heart, not just because I'm Latino, but guess where the Blue Beetle is from? Jaime Reyes is from El Paso, Texas. Mm-hmm. So there's all sorts of controversy as to why the movie wasn't filmed in El Paso. We can do a whole episode on the Blue Beetle, the educational ramifications. But as part of the movement of getting El Pasoans to come out and support Blue Beetle, because it's supposed to be a trilogy, and if the first one does well, they will film parts 2 and 3. and parts 2 and 3 will be filmed partially in El Paso. So I was on film myself, promoting the film, discussing EPLA, discussing what it means to have a protagonist who is Latino, a cast that is Latino and Latina, what it means for our kids to not only see themselves as these superheroes, but understand that this movie takes a lot of people to develop, and those jobs are real. The writing of this movie, the photography of this movie, the special effects of this movie, the logistics of this movie, all are people, many of which were Latino on this film. So a wonderful moment for our kids to make that connection that, yes, you get to see your protagonists be Latino, but the people behind it are also, and these are real jobs in the real world that our schools can prepare you for. So it was a fun week doing that. There was a lot of other stuff, but it's not nearly as cool and as good news as this. So we're just going to keep it to there. The life of an educator, man.
Talk about that.
It'll be fun.
I love it.
Have you looked at the box office for Blue Beetle, Omar?
Más o menos, man. I think it did 25 million this past weekend.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't look at it if you haven't looked at it yet on the show, man.
No, it ain't looking good overall.
Yeah.
However, you know, there's hope.
Keep hope alive, brother. Keep hope alive.
Keep hope alive. Correct.
You know, I'm a big movie guy, man. I watch those box offices, man. DC's been struggling. They had the Flash didn't do well, and
did you see that? No, the Flash. It's not that it didn't do well. It was the worst of all time.
Well, Blue Beetle. This is the thing, man. Blue Beetle is on pace right now.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know, man. It's I don't envy those people over there, man. They got some tough decisions. But I heard
our boy James Cameron, man,
checking it out, especially after your endorsement.
Yeah, I mean, our boy James Gunn, man. Yes, please. It is actually really good. And then there are all sorts of badass Easter eggs to El Paso, like a lot of them. That
none of us would get but you. You would be the only person that gets them, but we would go watch for them.
There's two deeply obvious ones. The others are, yes, they are really subtle, and I would only catch them, correct. Or El Pasoans would.
That's what's up.
All right.
Yeah, come on, check it out.
We got a hell of a show for check-ins.
What'd you say?
I said it's time for VDoc to check in.
Yeah, the check-ins. I usually be forgetting about check-ins. I'm not a big check-in person, but I got you because it's, you know, because y'all asked for it.
I always got to give me a hard time. When Omar and Dave say it's time to check in,
I get them hard times too. Listen,
you want to talk some shit?
Well, there's two reasons. There's two reasons. There's two reasons, right? Reason one is I just don't care for check-ins as a professional adult. That's just me. We had work. It's fine. The second reason, I'm in the midst of an existential crisis. Like I said, I had a very, you know, I had a birthday that came up, and the existentialism is still very much happening. And there's just a lot of changes that I'm working on that I'm trying to make. Like, again, you know I just got off with one of my teams now. The social media thing is a thing. Like, the fact that I've closed out my social media in a lot of places is like a thing in a lot of spaces. And I'm just like, it don't make me happy. So we got to figure it out. Like, I don't like it. Like, so I still have my Twitter. I still got my YouTube, where in addition to doing this, I'm talking about movies. That's why I was up on the Blue Beetle numbers and all that good stuff, man. But I am happy to be on with you all. And I want to also say welcome to our partners at BS3 and the BS3 network, and seeing some great work that you all are doing. And to our Roku family, wanted to just make sure we said hello. But I am going back on the road tomorrow. I've been on the road a lot in the last 3 weeks. And so I'm looking forward to just being focused, doing some good work, knocking some things out, and seeing where we end up on this existential crisis axis. Is very interesting. But yes, is that a good enough check-in for you, ma'am?
Yes, thank you.
Does that
very
suffice?
much.
That is exactly why we have. That's exactly why we have check-in.
Social emotional connection here on the South Star Classroom. Yeah. So thank you for your check-ins. Much appreciated. Goodness gracious.
Gotcha.
And now for today's
man.
topic.
That was
we all
the
know
best
the
check-in.
power of an effective teacher. And that's why I brought this this topic to the fore, because I've had some amazing teachers in my life. And if it were not for them, I wouldn't be experiencing the success that I'm experiencing now. None of us would. And not only is a good teacher responsible for teaching to whatever the grade level expectation is, but an effective teacher can catch a student up a year and a half, 2 years, up to, you know, where they need to be if they are behind or in our low performing schools. So we're talking about teacher shortages because it's something that's been happening for a while, which the pandemic has worsened. And so that's what we're talking about today. So as you already know, like I said, there's a crisis going on. It started back in 2015, according to the data. Burnout is super high, higher than it's ever been. And I believe that has something to do with, and I'm trying to stick with the facts, but education, of course, it changed during the pandemic with hybrid models or 100% virtual models. Or some folks, they didn't even stay home. So there were a mixture of ways that teachers were responsible for disseminating information. And so that added to the stress. And then we have the social emotional piece, et cetera, et cetera. So burnout is high. Teachers are leaving at record rates. And the pipeline that we used to be able to rely on is growing smaller and smaller. And so this has been an issue since 2015. It really began with the teacher and student ratio imbalance. That's where it first started, right? More students than teachers. And then since then, a bunch of experts and institutes raised alarms about the fact that this is really going to be a problem. And so here we are. So in 2016, the Learning Policy Institute estimated a growth from 64,000 vacancies in 2015 to 300,000 vacancies by 2020, with an increase to 316,000 vacancies by 2025. And folks, it is 2023, right? So fast forward to 2020 and beyond, these numbers have increased to over 1 million open positions across our country. Right. So more data, the NCES data shows that currently 45% of public schools are operating without a full teaching staff. Like, damn. According to the National Council on Teacher Quality, states like Florida, Illinois, Arizona have the highest number of public school teacher vacancies. And this is largely composed of low-income, non-native English speakers. Take Texas, for example. There's over 370,000 classroom teachers that were hired in the 21-22 school year, serving cities like San Antonio, Uvalde, Houston, El Paso, areas with low-income households, and a large percent of children of color are impacted by this shortage. And so by the end of the 2021-2022 academic year, 44,400 teachers left the profession entirely, right? Who's responsible for this shortage? Well, there's a lot of blame going on. We got political parties. Some people say it's parental and state preferences. Some experts are looking back to 2015 and saying that it's just a merely enhanced problem that worsened over time. And these problems include massive layoffs during the recession between 2008 and 2012, the pandemic and lack of instructional direction during that time. We're all scurrying, trying to figure out how we're going to teach the babies, and political and cultural agendas that were carried into schools. And then lastly, the top three common determinants for teacher shortage, right, based on this information, is decline in teacher preparation enrollments. So that's been a thing, like I said earlier. A failure to return to pre-COVID student to teacher ratios, and an increase in student enrollment, and an increase in teacher attrition. All right, so I'll stop there. I have a couple more facts, but let's weigh in on that. What are your initial thoughts, gentlemen, about the information that I just shared? We're in a crisis.
We've been in a crisis. We've been in a crisis.
I feel like I should have a flame on my
sound
head.
like
Where's the
David. I
crisis?
sound like David when he was getting ready for this hurricane and went out and bought shit and was like, "Oh, it just rained." Like I'm gonna be full of hot takes today, man. Because here's the thing, right? A lot of people talk about the teacher profession and we need more teachers. We have 4 people here right now that are all qualified and can go teach. Many of us can, some of us can do traditional, but all of us are qualified to teach in a private or charter institution. Are any of the 4 of us breaking down doors to right now to go back into a classroom? Like I came into the game not as a teacher, but as a cousin career, which was social work, right? Which is going through something similar. I mean, but there's a lot of things, and I don't want to take up too much time, but here are just some of the questions that came to my mind, because I swear to God, y'all, I have talked about this topic on shows like this no less than 8 times. Like every 8 Black Hands, we have to talk about it 2 or 3 times a year. Like every time a school year starts, and then mid-year people quit, like without giving warning. I talk about this topic so much that I gotta have whiskey and hot takes because I'm so sick of talking about it. But here's the questions, right? Like, one, is teaching still a desirable profession? I know it's honorable and all this stuff, but for a position where you need high degrees that have low pay, and if you're in a traditional system, I can't even say, well, David, I want to entice you with bonuses based off performance. Like, I can't even do that if you have a union. You know what I mean? I think people are turned off by how the highly political nature on both sides of the aisle on this, right? Like I don't want to be a political pawn either way, right? Like, you know, I think that you can't teach a certain way, and it's really hard to do quality control in this profession that's not really respected in that type of way. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and it's like, what is the incentive? You know what I mean? Like if especially when somebody that's really smart and would probably be a good teacher can go on TikTok and do like 5 lessons really well over and over and make money and have freedom and do certain things. I just think we have to start asking different questions, because we can pontificate. We got a whole bunch of people from everywhere that has a lot of intelligent stuff to say. And guess what? We still ain't got a whole bunch of people hired. We still got a bunch of vacancies and they don't want to do this shit. And I have, as I pass it off, shout out to our friend of the show and one of my favorite people, Sharif El-Mekki, who runs BMEC, Black Male Educator Collective, where he's trying to get Black males into teaching. And one of the questions, they like, well, if I'm talented, if I'm as talented as you said I am, and I want to have a family and I want to be respected, is teaching the place that I want to go? All right, well, and I'll just end my point on this, and then I will shut up, Jubilee and David. While all that energy was spent having all that heat for Teach for America, for having all that shit to say about Teach for America that was actually bringing people into the profession, instead of having that vitriol, what I would always say was build your own TFA, build the Black TFA, build the brown one, build more teaching pipelines that can take them out because they're of quality. But instead, what has happened is we've poked so many holes in that even they're dwindling, and there's nothing else there with the type of infrastructure that can do these massive efforts in the way that we want to see it done. So that would be my hot take and my initial reaction.
Well, thank you for that.
Your TFA comments are interesting, because it was like one of the criticisms of TFA was that they were like fast tracking teachers into the classroom too quickly, right? And now, as a result of the teacher shortage, we see not a dumbing down, but like a reduction, or making it easier to fast track people back into classrooms, right? Like kind of like TFA did. But I think, you know, obviously the pandemic was a big turning point for a lot of this, for so many things. But even pre-pandemic, when we talk about like teacher shortage, you know, we've always had a teacher shortage. I mean, even going back 20 years for math and science teachers, right? I was looking at one of the articles you shared. It's still an issue in California, right? Mm-hmm. The one article that kind of goes state by state. So that thing is still there pre-pandemic. And then the other thing is teacher pay, you know, has always been a thing. You know, when I went into education, like it was a second career for me. And I knew I'm like, I can only teach for 5 years. And back then the teacher salary was When I started, it was like, I mean, entry level was like 38,000, right? It's a lot higher now, but I went from making like $85,000 a year in a corporate job in the year 2002 to making like a third of that, and so I think the teacher pay thing definitely has to be addressed. And then one of the pieces that you shared, the other one talks about, teachers not feeling prepared or respected. And I think that's, part of that is the political issue, but it's like, we have to look at our teacher training programs, right? I went to a university-based teacher training program that did not teach me how to teach, right? Paid a lot of money. And I did not feel competent. I did not feel prepared. I did not feel good about going into the classroom. And this is a long time ago. And so I think those are a couple of the things that we have to address, whether the pandemic came or not. But I do agree with you. We're headed towards, I don't know if we're going to fall off a cliff, but it looks like it's just going to continue to get worse.
So interesting that you bring that up. So according to the Pew Research Center and the U.S. Department of Ed, there's been a 19% decrease over the last 20 years in students graduating with college degrees in education. So Houston, we have a problem, right? Because so that coupled with what I'm looking at on my computer now, which are the top 100 jobs, and I'm scrolling through the list, and guess what profession is not on there? I got up to 30, and teacher is still not on there. And so I know that the stats are really terrible, but my brain is working around, what about those that stay? What about those that are inspired because they're still coming back? Like, why do you think that those people who are there, who are still in the classroom serving our students, why are they still there? Why are they returning? And is there anything that we could pull from that to encourage and inspire others to do the same? And here's what I want to name. Like, I understand the politics and the fact that, like, to Charles's earlier point, that like there's some mountains that we just can't move, right? As school leaders, as teachers, as CBOs, etc., because they're kind of that's above me now. Yeah, did you ever see that video that went viral? It's above me now. So I'm trying to think about what's in our sphere of influence and control. What impact can we have for those that are staying and for those that we could potentially attract?
Well,
I mean, I got all sorts of.
Oh, go ahead, Omar. I didn't want to cut you off.
No, go ahead, Doc.
One, you can stop having 20 high schools in a city. Listen, like, do we have a real teacher shortage, or do we all just want to have really small schools? Because I remember growing up, and there would be like 1 or 2 high schools in an area, about 4 or 5 junior highs and middle schools, and about 15 or 20 elementary schools. And then, and you had, when you got a school with 2,000 people and 2,500 people, you can have classrooms that are a little bit bigger. You can have a concentration of educators. But if you got schools that's got 200 kids here and 300 kids, I mean, I'm gonna sound like a curmudgeon, and David can actually. David was in Oakland with me. Like, David was in Oakland when we had so many schools for a dwindling population, and we were growing more schools, and we were afraid to close district schools. So we would punish like schools that were performing well if they were charter and close those schools. Like, there's not a lot of common sense that's tied to education as a work field. Don't that sound crazy? For something that's supposed to be based in education, there's not a lot of like critical thinking about what actually needs to happen. So we continue to exacerbate this problem by, like, put it like this. I don't know if Catholic schools are struggling for teachers. I don't know if private schools are struggling in the same way for teachers. So I can go teach at a private school or a Catholic school, or I can teach at a university in a doctoral level program, but I wouldn't be qualified to go and teach something that I do professionally very, very well in a traditional school setting. So you have these boundaries, you have these borders that stop you, you have pay that stops you, you have politics that stop you, and there's so many other options for me of things that I can do if I'm a smart and good educator. Omar, go ahead, brother. Like I said, Can you tell that I talk about this topic a lot? I'm sorry. It's very
No apologies
apologize.
needed. That's
I don't
that's
understand
helpful.
why you apologize on our show.
I don't know
This is
why.
our show. This is our show, baby. This ain't nobody
You're
else's
right.
show.
You are absolutely
this is
right.
our show. They know apologizing on
Because
our
I don't
show.
want it to become Charles Cole's monologue, right? But like it's just we've seen this stuff for so long.
Give the
and the
people
answers are
what
there.
they want. The
Yes.
people want to hear from Dr. Charles.
They want to hear the
Amen.
doc.
That's right.
You got Omar started. You got him started.
Sometimes
now.
they want to hear shady. Sometimes they want to hear, the beard of knowledge. Sometimes they want to be uplifted, only so that it could be broken down again by the pessimism.
That sounds like the uplifting part sounded like me. Now, who's the tearing down part? Is that all three of you? Are you directing that to Charles?
I'm definitely the existential crisis Cole right now. So
I'm taking all the personal responsibility for that one. No, I got like all the opinions, right? So as I'm closing, a couple things here. One, I want us to think about what we're doing for low-income kids. And I always go back to that, but think about this just for a second for everyone on the show. If you grew up in El Paso, you grew up low income. I'm going to take my boy, Jacob Ojeda, for example. Jacob Ojeda is my sister's very good friend, grew up in El Paso, low income, wonderful family, right? First in his family to go to college. Do you think for a minute, Jacob Ojeda was like, yeah, let me go into teaching to remain low income, or let me take this opportunity to get the entirety of my family out of generational poverty forever by taking a higher income job? So you have a huge problem in that, we have a dearth of teachers, but you're not going to get the Latino and the Black teachers. Why? Two reasons. One, we are categorically underrepresented in most universities. So you already have a pipeline issue in that we're not going to college, and you got to go to college in order to become a teacher. Then if we do go to college, last thing that we're doing is getting into education. I mean, I remember graduating from college and everyone's like, I'm going to go work at SunDisk. I'm going to go work for Google. I'm going to go work at this venture capitalist firm and destroy several nations with my inherent greed. Damn, dude, that always broke my heart. All those Stanford people that went to go work for hedge funds and like are destroying the world. Oh man, it sucks.
I would have worked for a hedge fund in a minute if I had the opportunity. Continue.
Hey man, it's good to see that you and Dr. Doom have something in common. Anyways, I was like the weird minority out that I was like, I'm going to go teach low-income kids in Texas. And they're like, dude, what? That is exactly the reaction people have in going into the education field and the teaching field. It's like, Omar, you went to Stanford. That's not for you. You should be head of some, global corporation, not going into the classroom. That's what we think of education. So you've got this three-part problem. One, people in this country do not have in any way, shape, or form a positive outlook on becoming a teacher and getting into the profession. They always say it's a noble profession. What would we do without teachers? But this ain't Japan, where they're a group of people highly paid, exalted by society, and therefore it's difficult to become a teacher because it takes a lot. Two, you don't have the low income pool because they're not in college. Three, you don't have the low income pool because when they graduate from college, they're not getting into the teaching field. So we have to think about the overall format of education, because I think the overall format of education hasn't been updated since the 1940s. It totally sucks. I think we need a complete revamp. And if we were somehow or another, this is what I'm always after. I think most central offices are bloated. They just throw money and people at the problem, and people are gonna be like, I work in central office. And I'm like, yeah, should you be there? I have a huge contention that a central office should be minimized. The overwhelming majority of that work should be at the campus, and you pay the teachers and all the people at the campuses way more, and then redesign the school structure so that people want to work there. They feel incredibly happy and productive. You've built a community. You're giving them a viable income. I mean, hell, man, like I want to pay teachers 60 to 80 grand. And it's like, now I can recruit Jacob Ojeda because he's like, oh, 60, 80 grand, shit. I was going to make that at this engineering job. That sounds boring, but I can be part of this incredible community, give back to society, and make the exact same amount of money that I was going to make in this other profession. That is the key, in my opinion. And I wrote about that in grad school, and now it's been 13 years, and I'm like, damn, the hell is happening? So I mean, and I got you.
I love it. I want to read this mission statement to you. It's from a school, a charter school that's in New York, right? It's called the Equity Project. It says the Equity Project Charter School believes that teacher quality is the most important factor in achieving educational equity for students from traditionally underserved communities. Spurred by this belief, TEP reallocates its public funds by making an unprecedented investment in attracting and retaining great teachers. How much money do you think they pay their teachers? Now, hold on.
Didn't we do a show on this?
That's a different. Is that? Oh, is that
the 150 cats?
Yes.
Yeah, the
one.
Okay.
$140,000.
Yeah.
But the part that sticks out to me is the reallocation of the funds, because it's got me, and I hear everything that Omar is saying, but it's got me thinking about it. Is there a shortage in resources and funding? I don't think so. I think that this is connected to a lack of prioritization, because the money's there. To Omar's point about central, like the central office, usually these places are highly bureaucratic and highly top heavy. So like the money is there, right? But there isn't that vision connected to, we got to get this in the hands and in the lives of the teachers who are pulling most of this weight. So I just wanted to interject that. But it came to mind because I just recommended somebody, and she just became a master teacher at TEP, pulling in $140K and still having 4 weeks of vacation throughout the year. Somebody,
are they hiring? Are they hiring right now?
I can ask her. I
got a credential.
She just started working for them a few weeks ago as a master teacher. So she was one of my former teachers. So anyway, but what Omar said just made me think about that in terms of the central office and this whole idea of reallocating, and also what you said earlier, Charles, in terms of we got 50 million schools and 12 children. And it's like, oh, now we don't have enough teachers. Like, can we look at our resources and figure out how we can reallocate it in a way that makes sense and make sure that all the kids and all the schools get what they need in terms of staffing. So I know I'm preaching to the choir.
No, you're fine. I mean, but I'm a push, right? And I'm a challenge. I'm gonna challenge both you and Omar. Sure. How many of us here have worked in traditional schools where the majority of the kids and positions that we're talking about live? All right. So working in traditional schools, right? Like I worked in central office in traditional schools. When schools say we need social workers, we need more services on campus, we need teacher coaches, all those things that we're trying to reinvest at the site, just for people listening, those staff, even though they might report to your school or a school every single day, are non-class, they're classified as central office staff. So in a lot of ways, we ask for more, we ask for a lot of different things. And we don't understand that sometimes this is a zero-sum game, because a lot of these, but you have budgets, right? Like if you're paying for one thing, there's something else that you can't pay for. So I'm just saying, like, because we'll talk about this thing. People are like, man, we gotta listen. Your superintendent making $400,000 a year is not why your school does not have money for teachers. That's just not. We're talking about budgets. The OUSD budget at this point is about $800 million. Like it's not.
It's enough.
You get what I'm saying? But here's the thing. But when you want these specialty things, when like you cannot have every single thing. And as long as traditional education in poor, impoverished areas with Black, brown, and poor kids continues to be treated more like a charity, more like a sob story than a place of business where we expect excellence and we are trying to crank something out, I think that it's very, very different. I think that at TEP, and I don't know them, but I think that you have to do different things in that environment that you can't do over here in this other place. I just, when we talk about education, like how many people know about the rubber room, right? I remember when I heard about the rubber room. Yeah. When I heard about the rubber room, and it was just like, oh, this is not about kids at all. For y'all that don't know, the rubber room was a place in New York for teachers that had some type of misconduct or principals didn't want them in their school, but they had such a strong union that they could not be fired. So they had to send these people to a place called the rubber room where they had to show up every day. It's almost like detention for adults, but you still get a full paycheck.
I was just talking to my son about that.
They get paid. Yeah.
You get paid with benefits, right? So I get what y'all are saying. I don't disagree with it in principle, but so many of the general public and population don't understand how schools work, don't understand how school funding works. So for instance, we have to close down schools in a situation in Oakland every single year. And then somebody like the Benioffs or some billionaire will come and they'll drop a large sum of cash down, right? And then people be like, well, look, we got the money. We can keep the school going. And it's like, no. We have a systemic deficit, meaning that our costs are always more than what we bring in. So just because I infuse money this one time, if your budget is $5, if you only got $5 to spare, but all your shit costs $15, it don't matter if Jubilee gives you a 20. You're going to be all right for a month, and then you're going to be right back in the situation again. The irony of this country and education is that this is supposed to be deep thinkers. This is supposed to be the people that are in charge of educating the next generation of thinkers. And there's no fucking thinking that is happening around how you actually run these
they're thinking. They're just thinking about the wrong things.
You got them mad.
No, well, I'm going to.
What are they thinking about?
David, this is why David and I have been so close. David and I have been close because we used to always get in trouble, and we would get in trouble with our friends, and David would always get in trouble with his friends because we would look at data or we would look at something and we would say, hey, this thing is saying this, but people were so politically inclined all across the board to get what they wanted, and nobody is really checking out for these kids. So David, you have a different experience. I mean, you've ran schools, you've ran them in traditional, you've run them in charter, you've seen the crazy place that is Oakland. Like, I mean, tell me I'm off. You know what I mean?
No, you're not off.
Why we're here?
I think, we could do a whole case study on the dysfunction of not just Oakland Unified, but San Francisco Unified, Los Angeles Unified, San Diego Unified, Sacramento Unified, Fresno Unified. These are larger conversations that kind of defy normal everyday logic. But the thing here is that we went into this thing called the pandemic, and the problem is that these large districts are still they're trying to solve new problems with old tools, right? And they're not able to do that. You cannot solve new modern day ever evolving problems when you still have the same mindset of like, we need 80 buildings. We can't shut anything down. We can't resize. We can't think differently about how we pay our teachers. We can't downsize central office, right? This is still fighting against that, and so that's a whole like cultural kind of shift, which is a big challenge. But I will say what I have seen in some districts and a lot of charter schools, the ability to think different, to pivot, to make change around staffing of not just teachers, but other employees, is the shift towards, it's kind of like the shift that we had towards like food a while ago. Remember, like farm to table, like the shift to like grow and hire locally your teachers, right? Figuring out if you have students that come back and they work as aides, people from the community. So instead of looking, on the internet or in other areas for staff, like looking at your own community and seeing that as an asset, and then figuring out how to work through the ever existing like bureaucracy to get people the right credentials they need to work in those roles. So I think hire local, growing your own has been something that I've seen that's been successful. We've seen a lot of it in charter schools, and I think hopefully we'll get the chance to highlight some of that work in some of our some of the charter networks across the country, focusing on like Black and Latino teachers that, went to a school and come back and they're working in that community. When you have that community connection, listen, teaching is hard, whatever it is. Generally, it's not about money. It's maybe working conditions. But at the end of the day, if you don't like have a direct line of connection to the school and the community that you work in, because you have to drive 30 miles to get in and 30 to get out, it's easy to walk away from that. But if you live in that community, you actually have some other non-tangible thing that connects you to that work that makes it hard to walk away, because then you're essentially not just walking away from a job, but you're walking away from a community. So that's one thing. The second thing is, like the chicken or the egg phenomenon, right? Like pre-pandemic, Charles, any of us, right? Like, what was our experience in schools? I can tell you what my experience was in the schools. I had like very few Latino teachers, right? And so out of high school and even out of college, the last thing I thought I was going to do is to go back into that situation, because I didn't have a good like role model to like look up to. And so the chat, and this is getting to Omar's earlier point of like, if you've had 12 years of a shitty experience in a public institution that you were forced to attend, what makes you think that these people are going to want to go back and, work in that system, right? They're going to want to get as far away from it as possible. So, the way to do that is to make sure that, we're able to keep and retain the teachers of color, Black and Latino, that we currently have. There's some information in one of the pieces that you said. We clearly know what they're saying and why they're leaving, right? And the number is like something like half of teachers polled in one of the polls said they're going to leave. And that's pretty scary. The other thing I'll add, because in these times of quote unquote scarcity, we tend to say like, hey, well, we found this guy on the street. His name's Charles Cole. He has a pulse. We can understand what he says. He doesn't have a criminal record, so let's hire him. And so we tend to like lower the bar, right? And I think that's a big mistake that a lot of schools and organizations are doing right now. Like, we shouldn't be lowering the bar. We should still keep a high bar for who we employ in our schools, and you should still maintain systems that weed out low performing teachers. You don't just need a body. If you have a teacher that is committed to coming back to work with you in your organization, but they have a track record of not being able to demonstrably serve students, like, they don't come back. You have to keep, it's not just about being fully staffed. It's about the high quality piece that Jubilee talked about earlier. You can't take your finger off of that pulse. So
it's interesting you say that, because now my brain goes back to when I took over my school, and like over 50% of the teachers were like, we're out of here. Who is this lady? Third principal in 3 years. We're out of here. And I did need a body, right? Like, I did not have a plethora of options to be like, you're not qualified. Oh, like we were hired a temp agency. We were leaving no stone unturned and still not finding people that were qualified and willing. Let's put it like that. Because some people were willing and not qualified. Some people were not qualified and unwilling. Right. And so when we get to this kind of place where we've been for all of these years in terms of the shortage, that does become a thing. Because now we're talking about compliance. Oh, my child has special needs. It's supposed to be 2 teachers in this classroom. It's an ICT setting, and you only got 1 teacher, and that's a gen ed teacher. We need a body. So Mr. Sleuth, who like drools on himself and like reads the newspaper all day, like doesn't care about anything. We need that guy. Where is he? Because at least he'll make us compliant. But these are all of the issues, right? The episode that we did with the substitute teacher, we did a school safety. Remember the school safety issue? And we talked about the substitute that ended up getting into a fight with kids. She was willing, but probably wasn't qualified to de-escalate or to know. And so we open up our world to all of these different scenarios because we have to have people who are willing or not qualified, or qualified and unwilling. So I wanted
to be fair to her, that kid cocked back and punched the shit out of her. Like, I mean, that was.
Did she? She was pushing her. She was pushing her, but
no, she got up in that grown woman's face and swung on her.
She did. However, However, there was space.
Montgomery
There
Molly
was
Whopping all
space
over
to
again.
walk away. There was. Now I can't tell you that it would have been me that walked away. However, there was space to walk away, and someone that's been trained in de-escalation, a special education educator, social worker, behavior interventionist, like they know how to.
If I'm trained in all that, you got to pay me. And if I'm trained in all that, like that's what I'm saying. If I have that, so Jubilee, it's 4 of us right here, 4 very smart people. We're gonna go down the line. David, do you want to go back and teach in the classroom tomorrow? They need you.
Oh, good question. I would say I would definitely consider it.
That's good. You are an angel. Omar, we need you in the classroom. I know you running the school, but you know what? Let that go. Let somebody else run that and all that stuff. We need you to be a top
hold on.
teacher.
Caveat. It would have to be at the school down the street. I want to. If I
Got
did
you.
it would have to be like at a school within my community.
There you go. That's a good one. That's a good one. Omar, would you go back into the hey man, we'll handle somebody leading your network and all that stuff in your schools. We need you, quality person in the classroom down the street. Would you and I need you to go and take the pay that they got, not leave whatever it is that you got going on. Teach for us, baby.
No.
There you go. Yeah, Jubilee. We need you who is consulting now, who got her own practice and all that stuff. And whatever, but it's gonna be a steady paycheck and there's gonna be some benefits. We need you in the school down the street. Go and they letting you in. You going to teach right now?
Maybe.
Listen, y'all are great.
What, baby? What the hell?
Listen,
Man, I'd hire you in a
maybe
minute for fucking what the hell? If you're looking for a job, I got like 87 from El Paso.
No, listen, I'd have a lot of conditions. But I say maybe. Listen,
what conditions would you have? Wait. What conditions would you have?
Oh, that's a good point. What are those conditions?
I need my time, so I need to be able to get in and get out. I feel
that's not how that works.
I feel like I can whip a class into shape, and I can get these babies what they need. But I also will need somebody in there, an apprentice, somebody that wants to train, so I could train them and get the hell out of there. Like,
wait. But we got to teach a shortage.
That wasn't part of the deal. That wasn't part of the deal.
She got an exit plan.
I'm
getting in, I'm getting out.
It is.
So let me just
want to get out of the classroom.
Wait. I got a whole mic on this one. For the people listening, not only are we in the middle of a teacher shortage and we ask Jubilee don't want to just fill a space. She wants her classroom to have multiple teachers, multiple bodies in it.
At least one
condition, and she wants to be able to leave when she needs to leave.
Yes, give me one person.
America, you are doomed. You will not listen. You will not have teachers for your kids. You better adapt or die. You better find some Reading Rainbow. You better get you some home.
Did you just say you didn't find Reading Rainbow?
This is crazy.
Star Trek.
You just pulled the mic close to your mouth.
My man's name
really
Lamar
right now.
I'm just telling you, because this is what I'm saying. We're not having the real conversation. And listen, and this is what we do. We will guilt Black people, brown people that come from these communities and say, well, you got to teach. We need you. You got to do it. So now you got these people that's doing it kind of reluctantly, right? And they want to be good people, but they also I don't know if I want to necessarily do this, and I don't know how long I want to do it. Like when I got my social work gig, which was $32,500, baby, you couldn't tell me nothing. I was getting 32,000 of them things, right? But here's the thing. Let me tell you what they did, right? Let me tell you how innovative they were. I didn't want to go get an MSW. I didn't want to do it, but I was really good in the organization. They wanted me to be I started as like a worker that worked with the special needs kids. Now as a social worker, right? I was what was called an inclusion facilitator. I worked with these kids, right? But they wanted me to be a social worker. I said, well, I ain't doing that MSW. I don't want to do that. So what they said was, hey, we're going to give you some special classes you got to take. There's special type of supervision, and we will give you an MSW exception that Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger will sign, and you can be a social worker. I said, okay, cool, right? You lowered the entry for me to get in, and then I got in and I loved it. And I stayed for like 5 years. And then social work is good to get people into because you can pivot into so many different things. There was an adaptation. You have to adapt or die. But this same thing, we can't want 1 million schools. We can't want schools with 10 kids in a classroom. We can't want 200 kid classes. We can't want all the social services inside of the schools and have all these things and then be surprised when you don't have enough people to fill those slots. And then I'm the devil when I have to say your school building holds 600. You have an enrollment of 120. We got to shut it down. Well, this is racist. This is this. No, you don't want to go here. And I don't blame you for not wanting to go here. But we have to like repurpose that thing. This model is not working. And I would hope that educators would be able to read that. But you know what they do? The union will get up there and they will lie to you. And they'll say, they got the money. They got the money. They can do it. They just don't want this and they just don't want that. Well, no, baby, your school got the money because you go to the white school on the hill that is a traditional school, but it's competing with a private school, not a charter school. Your school is a blue ribbon school competing with a private school, and you got a wait list. Like, it's very, very different circumstances. And until we start being honest with our people, till we start having those hard conversations and being able to take the shit that comes with it, like, we're gonna continue to get this, and they're gonna keep telling you what you want to hear, and your kid's still gonna keep getting to the 11th grade read on the 5th grade level. And then you're gonna say, man, my kid can't read. Well, it ain't about that. It's how they feel. How is this happening? Well, I'll send them somewhere else about the feeling. Like, my kids shouldn't be treated terribly, but there are so many ways, and we know this. This is why I'm kind of having this demeanor, because the four of us know this. We have been in these places. We have seen it. We have seen when there's not quality, and we know how this goes. And we're going to have this conversation again next year. And we're going to have this conversation in in October, November, where all these teachers quit. So you got all these new people that really don't want to do this shit. And now you got 2 out of every 10 teachers walking out in the middle on kids. And we're going to talk about how sad that is. In the New York Times, it's an economy around how fucked up this system is that people make hundreds of thousands of dollars off of while we begging people to take a $45,000 a year job. It's perverse. And you need to know what it is. And families, if you're listening, you need backup plans. You need to talk to those coaches. You need to talk to those elders. You need to have programs, enrichment things. You have to go on YouTube and make playlists. Like, go and download the free homeschool stuff. Not for you to be a homeschool teacher, but for you to have some identifying qualities around what the levels are supposed to be. And you can do some type of analysis on your own. They're not coming to save you, boo. I promise you they not. And I make more money by not saving you, but talking shit about it. That's the
Well, you answered the question. If my child is in a school,
I'm sorry, Jubilee.
I'm sorry.
Yo, I just want to take a moment really quick.
Spoken. He answered the damn question.
Look, he gets the video clip of the year for this one. Also,
period.
has
this
any
is
of
all
y'all
we're
ever
posting
seen
for this episode.
I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker? Because he just sounded like John Slade, where he's like,
period.
The people need me. The people are the ones that took me off the street. Fuck the people.
Yes. And also I'm about to figure out how to make a looping reel with they ain't coming to save you, boo. They ain't coming to save you, boo. They ain't coming to save you, boo. Like, we might get a beat and make that a whole song. South Star Classroom approved.
Jubilee, this is how you can tell if they coming to save you or not.
Are
they kids next to yours or are they kids uptown?
Right. That makes sense. No, that does. So listen, because we got 8 minutes. And I agree with you. I want us to pivot and talk about the people that stayed. I want us to spend a couple minutes talking about those people, right? So back to my principalship experience. Like I said, it was 50% of the people was out of there, okay? And I worked with my team to increase retention of teachers from 50% to 96%. And there are some critical things that I did to do that. And I have a bunch of colleagues who were in similar, predicaments that had to figure out, we have some good people. The ones that left, most of them weren't cool. Some of them were all right, but the ones that are here now, we want to keep them. How do we do that? All right. Mm-hmm. So I want to hear from you. Just one thing, because I want to do a quick whip around and then I want us to go into niche notes. What can you offer for those school leaders that are working to retain the talent, the quality teachers that they already have, that stayed, that are invested, that are effective, that love what they do? Because despite what all of these stats say, there are still people who are highly invested in education and not, on the outskirts, just having, random conversations. They're in the work on a daily basis, and it has nothing to do with the money. Of course, we all need money so that we have sustenance, but they're in there because they're invested. So what do we say to those people?
I mean, directed at people that are running schools. So it's like the average principal. You have to have your finger on the pulse, right? And whether you're a small school or a charter network or a district, you have to know, like in the large aggregate, like what are your not just teachers, but like your staff telling you? Like, what are they saying about working conditions? What do they want more of? What do they want less of? And then you can actually even break that down even further, because I guarantee you in large districts, if you look at like white and Asian teachers and black and brown teachers, they're probably answering the same question in very different ways. So you have to have good data to understand what your people want. And then you go down a level, and then figuring out individually, like at the site level, you have academic deans, you have instructional leads. Like, what do individual teachers want? Like, that, I mean, really, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about pay. We're talking about, like, I'm a teacher. I want more support in my classroom around, classroom culture, discipline, or curriculum and instruction. Or I think my students need more mental health supports, whatever that is. You have to connect those dots. And this is like, one of the things that big systems are not good at is connecting these dots. But I think my takeaway is, if you're saying, like, if you want to keep the good people, get rid of the bad people, because the good people want to see the bad people go. And then having your finger on the pulse and really understanding what your people are saying that they need.
Thank you. Omar, what you got? One thing.
Repeat the question, Jubilee. Restate the
Is
question.
he frozen? Am I frozen?
He might be, but restate the question,
good.
though.
Yeah.
For those.
Oh no, I gotcha.
For
I heard
the
all the things. I'm just having all the technical difficulty today. So we got a shortage of time. To those of you that are in teacher administration or a manager, or really a manager anywhere, I recommend one book to you. It's called It's the Manager. Buy it, read it, own it. It is an exceptional book. What it gets you at is that Gallup has done this comprehensive survey, and they've distinguished that anyone in any workplace really wants 12 things to happen to them.
Yeah.
Those 12 things will make a incredible difference in terms of their happiness. And pay is not one of them. Listen, pay is good. You got to pay our folks. Right. One of the reasons that we have so many teachers bailing, as David eloquently put, is that you can't afford to live in San Francisco or Los Angeles or the community you're teaching in, because you can't afford to live there. But these 12 things aren't pay. These 12 things are actually things that seem pretty logical, but may shock you. For an example, one of the things is like, do I have a friend at work? That is one of the 12 things that make people incredibly happy to show up to work and continue working there. How about my voice matters? Meaning there is a structured way for my manager and for the higher ups in the school and the organization to hear my voice, and I see that my opinions are not only being validated, but sometimes even being implemented. So my
God forbid you actually implement something.
Yeah, I mean, good God, right? I mean, it's not rocket science. It's simple. It's just all these smart people don't realize that they have an army of smarter people. And that army of smarter people can collectively make a community that is building something unique. Because I will say, this is my last thing. I think the entire way we do the school system sucks. That's right, sucks. Like Rodney Dangerfield. I'll tell you, this whole place sucks. That's right, sucks. And the only reason I'm here is because I'm thinking about buying this joint. That is what I think about the educational system. It sucks. Who the hell wants to come to this like classroom to classroom bullshit and the amount of compliance that teachers have to do? I am looking to blow this whole system up. Jubilee, I will get you that job. I will get you the job where you're in a group of like 50 kids doing blended learning with 2 to 3 other teachers in the room, which is exactly the way that we should be breaking down this whole thing. Because the last thing I want to share is that this is the symptom, and you're trying to cure it with the Band-Aid of let's put more money into the teachers. Let's get teacher education schools. I'm like, schools suck. The school system sucks. The whole thing needs to be absolutely reconfigured. The South Star is writing a damn book about it. EPLA, you will see in the next 5 years, will completely reconfigured the entirety of how we do things. No more bell schedules, no more going class to class, like revolutionary stuff. This is what should be happening, because you do that, you build a community, and then you care about the people within the community. The book's called It's the Manager. Those three things are what's vitally needed, I think, in the education space to revitalize and repatriate the entire teaching force.
You can skip Julie. I know you want to get to the next question.
Did you just call yourself Existential Crisis, Cole? I just noticed your name.
That's really that.
So and somebody got an echo. I think I don't know what an echo came from, but okay.
Is it? Are we good? Oh, okay.
Good.
Existential crisis, Cole, is crazy. We're at time, so here's what I'll say. I'm fine with.
Do you still want your niche notes? We can stay over for your niche note.
If we're able to do it in each person 30 seconds or less.
Yell at us. It's okay. Be like, stop. You're done. It's okay.
Okay. So the niche note is whatever you want to offer from your expertise connected to this topic around teacher shortages or whatever's happening around this time of the school year, whatever you want to offer. And I'll go first. Charles, you can rap since you want me to direct and yell. There we go. So for me, I just want to say to the school leaders, right, we need you in the building, and hopefully you are not allowing the stress to dehumanize you. Right? People, there's a quote that says, and I'm sure it's based on a stat that I can't quote because I'm not sure of it, but that people do not leave jobs or buildings. They leave other people. They leave leaders. They leave managers that they feel like they are not connected to. And so every single day that you walk on campus, you walk into your building, you have an opportunity to make connections. And if people are even having a glimmer of hope, it is likely because of the connections they have with their leaders, with their boss, and with their other colleagues, to Omar's earlier point. And so please try not to allow, I know it's easier said than done, but try not to allow the stress to dehumanize you. Walk around, laptop in your office, hands-free, making connections with the people in your building. It could save you a year of hiring stress. And I'm throwing the ball to Dave.
All right. So one thing, and it's really the same thing, the most important bond, connection, relationship in schools is between a teacher and their students, right? And so, if you are a parent and you have not yet heard from your child's teachers at this point, then do the proactive thing and reach out to them to establish that connection. If you are running a school and you have a staff of teachers, make sure that your teachers are doing early outreach, making that connection from home to the classroom. The reason I'm saying that is because we're talking about a teacher shortage. And when a teacher is in a room with 20 or 25, students, they are not alone. You have a whole, family systems behind you. You have a community. And the only way to leverage that community is to open up communication. And so that can make the job of teaching much more tolerable, pulling in resources, opening lines of communications with families, making sure that everybody's connected. So that's what I have to offer, especially now at the beginning of the school year.
Awesome. Thank you. Omar, what you got?
Yeah, I'll be quick. So I think personal connection is imperative, right? You're just to echo what you've all said, but I think when it breaks down to it, and I heard this recently, and it's like, man, that really, really hits home. People want to be seen, they want to feel special, and they want to be heard. And if you're just one of these administrators or managers walking around with your clipboard and you're not getting into the connected part of your teachers, how do you think that your teachers are going to model that ability in order to connect with kids? It's all modeling, right? So if you're able to model that personal connection with a teacher and then say, this is how you can connect with a child, those things are going to have exponential results. And someone being like, I feel like I'm part of something special. I feel like I'm part of something bigger than me. And my kids look up to me, but I look up to the leader because they're modeling this specific behavior of creating an interconnected community that's all working towards a common goal. You do that, you've got a lot of it out of the way.
Thank you for that.
Yep. I'm not going to talk to the professional, because the professional, whether that person stays, they stay. God bless them. If they don't stay, they degreed up and they'll probably go somewhere else and make more money. I'm talking to the parent and that family, because you are the only people that have to live with the state of education. If you're really good at education in your job, you make money when the state of education is bad, because there's always a need for you. Listen, if you got Kumon money, spend it. If you don't got Kumon money, like, look for clubs, look for tutoring groups. Like, look at what ancestors did. The Black Panthers built their own schools with no bread. The freaking like formerly enslaved people like built one-room classrooms, and a lot of them couldn't read. They found a few people that could, and they built around that. What I'm saying is, you don't have to know quantum physics. Do this. Make sure your child is reading at the very least. A young person that can read very well and comprehend very well will end up doing better, even if the school sucks. I'm not saying it's going to be great, but like, so you don't have to be the best reader yourself. Make them read the newspaper to you every day. Make them read the sports section. Make them read a book out loud. Like, you are the only person that has to live with the consequences of it. I never, look, man, teachers should be paid better and all this stuff, and teaching should be better. Like, all that shit, I can do that all day. But at the end of the day, those statistics say if your kid gets suspended multiple times, if your kid can't read, if these things happen, then the chance of them going to prison is this. The chance of that girl getting pregnant is this. The chance of them dying early is this. So you have to know, and now that you know these consequences, you got to be willing to do anything and everything in your power to make sure your kid is prepared for the real world. And know that the product that they're giving you at your kid's school is not good, statistically speaking. Actually, 8 out of 10 schools, if we're talking about traditional and poor people, I can throw a rock and it's probably not going to be great. So with the understanding that ain't nobody coming to save you, now you got to make some different decisions.
Awesome. You have been watching the South Star Classroom, episode 106. We want you to follow us on Instagram at the South Star Classroom. That's the South Star Classroom on Instagram. You also click the link in the bio on Instagram to find our YouTube channel and subscribe to that as well. We're here every single week, Tuesday, 3 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Eastern time. I'm Jubilee. That's Omar. That's David. That's Charles. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time. Peace.
Peace out. Peace out.